Hello, everybody. You're all very welcome to this online event, Sharing is Caring, Real Life Stories in Fighting Breast Cancer, which has been organised by the EPP group in the European Parliament. My name is Karen Coleman. I'm a journalist and a broadcaster from Ireland, and I'm going to be moderating this evening's event. I'm the editor of Europarl Radio and EU News Radio, which provide coverage of EU news for Irish radio stations. Apologies for the late start. We had a few technical glitches, but we're here now, which is great. So this webinar is about raising awareness of and encouraging breast cancer screenings. And you may know that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and breast cancer sadly claims the lives of more women in the EU than any other cancer. And 1 in 11 women in the EU 27 will develop breast cancer before the age of 74. So what can be done to reduce the cases of breast cancer? Well, early detection, certainly through screening, can certainly offer women a significant chance to tackle the disease before it spreads. But there are still inequalities between member states when it comes to rolling out breast cancer screening programs. And the European Commission's Beating Cancer Plan aims to improve screening across the EU. And last year, the European Parliament set up a special committee on beating cancer. The EU Cancer Plan has pledged to help member states to ensure that 90% of the EU population who qualify for breast cancer screenings are offered them by 2025. So over the next 45 minutes or so, I will be asking how breast cancer screening can be improved and what else can be done to reduce the cases of breast cancer in the EU. And in particular, as the motto of this event is real life stories, we're going to hear some personal stories of breast cancer from our guests, either through direct experience of having it themselves or through the work they do with survivors of the disease. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our 3 guests for this session. Eva Maydell is an EPP group member of the European Parliament from Bulgaria. Besides her political work, Eva has been actively involved in several causes in the area of education and social inclusion. Her work has included supporting the breast cancer awareness fundraising campaign in Sofia and the social inclusion of children with special needs, as well as the work of the European Parliament on mental health. Our next guest is Tanja Spanic, the President of Europa Donna, Slovenia. Europa Donna is a foundation specifically focusing on awareness around breast cancer. It's an independent, non-profit organisation whose members are affiliated groups from countries throughout Europe. Tanja was herself diagnosed with breast cancer in 2008 when she was just 26. Since then, she has become an active breast cancer advocate, especially for young women with breast cancer. She is also a doctor of veterinary medicine and holds a PhD in neuroscience. And our final guest is Dr. Roland Halston. He is a member of a support group for employees with breast cancer in the European Parliament. The Brussels Medical Service offers psychological support in the workplace for women who are suffering or have suffered from breast cancer during their sick leave and are on their return to work. You're all very welcome. Thank you very much for being with us. And a big hello to those of you who are joining us online. By the way, fire in any questions you may have through Facebook or YouTube, the platforms you're watching this on. We'd love to hear from you. But let me go now to our guests. Eva, maybe first of all, to you. You've had, as I said, you've had experience through these fundraising campaigns for breast cancer. Why did you get involved in breast cancer campaigns in particular to start with?
First of all, thank you very much for having me. I have to be honest, I was a little bit surprised by the invitation. I wasn't sure why I was the one to be invited. We have a couple of other, MEPs that are perhaps even more knowledgeable on the topic. And then I understood what triggered the invite, and that was my support in various forms ever since the first information campaign began in Bulgaria. That was more than 20 years ago. I remember it was 1999 when the first breast cancer survivor decided to go on TV in Bulgaria. I was a student. I remember the campaign covering different cities of women being willing to go through the screening. I remember that these were small steps. But each year, the campaign gathered more supporters. So each year, we saw that it was not just one organization trying to raise awareness, but many more were joining. And it was incredibly powerful, not just the spirit of the organization, but the spirit of all the ladies that decided to start slowly changing the statistics. And what I mean by changing the statistic is that, 25, 30 years ago, the numbers in Bulgaria were 75% of women were diagnosed in their late stage. Well, today, the percentage of women diagnosed with stage 1 has doubled. So the chances that these would be success stories, it's much higher than before, but it took a long time. However, where we are today, I'm proud by all the organizations that stood behind this cause and continue to enlarge its network. And I'm glad to have been one of the small supporters. Perhaps when I was a student, I never thought that one day I would be participating in some of the fundraising campaigns, and that one day I would be in the European Parliament sitting in a group that really wants to beat cancer and has a plan. We don't know how that plan will work. But we want to make important first steps, not just on national level, but on a European level, to try to make sure that we see more success stories in the future.
And just getting back to those experiences, now obviously more women, if they're presenting with stage 1 breast cancer, they are getting to the doctors earlier. What's the reason behind that, Eva? Is it because there's much more screening going on now, or they're much more aware about the need to self-check?
So if I take as an example, the experience that I have had in Bulgaria is, I think, first of all, the topic is no longer a taboo topic. The awareness has risen to many more women. There were cases in Bulgaria more than 20 years ago where women will be, detected with breast cancer, and employers will not know what to do. And they would say, well, we'll need to fire you because we don't know what to do. This is not happening anymore. What is happening is more and more women doing their regular checks. I'm very happy that October has become the month where more screenings are offered to also specific groups of people. And again, a concrete example. Sofia municipality and other bigger municipalities gather together with patient organizations, with NGOs from various sectors, with the private sector as well, from all sorts of walks of life, and targeted different areas of ladies, teachers, other professions in their sector, and encourage them to have their screening done. Once you start doing it, many women also, I believe, felt uncomfortable to do it, scared. There was a stigma in society. People were worried, but now the more women do it, it sets the right example, I believe. And the more regularly you do it, you understand that it's better to be detected early enough rather than later. So I think the awareness campaigns should not be undermined. They're so key and so important. And a larger network that gets together is also other part of the issue. And finally, sometimes could be, depending on the member state, expensive to do that screening. And if you're offered to do it for free, then you have more incentives to do it.
And just in Bulgaria, before I move on to our other guests, is it offered free of charge to any woman who wants it, or is it only to women of a certain age group?
So during the month of October, there are certain screening campaign, an awareness campaign, when it is offered free of charge. But I believe, and of course here I put a little disclaimer, I might be slightly wrong, I believe only of a women of certain age, you get it covered by the medical services, and that would be above 50. And this is something that I would like to hear also from Tanja and also from Dr. Halston, because I believe perhaps that target has to be limited based on the experiences we have today.
Yes, and I think it's definitely a question to explore, because I think it varies according to the member state. Tanja, if I can go to you, and Eva, you will be staying with us, of course, because I'll be going back to you. You're very welcome. Thank you very much. And indeed, you'll be sharing some of your own personal experiences with us tonight. And I want to talk to you about those to begin with. You were only 26 when you were diagnosed with breast cancer. How did you actually find out that you had the disease?
Well, first, good evening, and thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to be with you today. Well, yeah, 26 is not a common age for get a cancer diagnosis. As already Eva mentioned, the screening programs comes later. I actually felt a lump in my breast just by coincidence, and then I went to my doctor. I didn't do at that time a regular monthly self-examination of the breasts, which is actually the only thing we can do as a young women. So that's why now I advocate strongly for that. But we know for the screening programs that there are very clear guidelines, and also there are available European Commission initiative on breast cancer. It's available on the website where all these guidelines for the screening and diagnosis are described. We can probably discuss this a little bit in detail later.
And just your own experiences when you discovered the lump, tell us then about the journey, if you like, that you had to undertake to tackle the disease.
Yes, well, I really went very quickly to my doctor, and they really took me seriously, because we have a lot of experience with young women, like, you're too young, that's not a cancer. And we did all the diagnostic procedures. At that time, that was not a cancer, that was a fibroadenoma, so it wasn't so dangerous. But a few months later, I felt that the lump is growing. And then I went back to my doctor, and we repeated all the diagnostics. And at that point, it became, I was diagnosed with cancer. But after that, I went to Institute of Oncology here in Slovenia, and everything went very rapidly. So I was really happy with all the care and treatment that I got.
But did you have to go through the full gamut of care and treatment, chemotherapy, operations? What were your experiences there?
Yes. I got it almost the whole package, as I say. First, I had chemo because my tumor was so big, so I needed first chemo. After that, I had the radical surgery. After surgery, I had 25 radiation therapies, and everything was followed by 10 years of hormonal treatment. So at the beginning, at the time of the diagnosis, I wasn't aware that this will take me 10 years of the whole treatment and all the follow-ups. But now, 13 years later, it feels like it really went so quickly. But yeah, it wasn't easy, but it definitely was worth it.
And my goodness, I mean, that's a long time having to undertake that level of treatment over those years. Have you got a clean bill of health now?
Well, yeah, yes, definitely. But I'm still in the follow-up, and I think that this is really good for patients to have this security and to go to regular checkups to see if everything is still okay. So yeah.
So you were lucky, if you can call it that, in the sense that you did check yourself when you discovered the lump. You took action, obviously, straight away, and it was very important that you did that. But from your experience, and we'll go on to talk about your experience with the organization, but is that common, do you think, Tanja? Do women generally react that quickly, or do you think that they're perhaps maybe reluctant to take action?
Yeah, that really depends probably on the personality that we are, but most of women react quickly. At least either they call their doctor or they call patient organization just to take an advice. But we unfortunately also see cases when women are waiting probably for the lump to go away, or to some miracle will happen, so the lump won't go away probably. So they have to take actions. And as I said, unfortunately, still today, we see that women are waiting and not taking the action.
And just before I go to Roland Halston, you know, would you were very young, obviously, only 26 when you were diagnosed with breast cancer. There is this whole argument, and Eva alluded to it earlier there as well, that there's no point in screening younger women. We'll say the type of screening where you'd go into a service and you have the mammograms and everything for younger women. Do you believe that? Would you support that theory? Or do you think it should be rolled out to women of all age groups, the screening?
Well, actually, the breast cancer in women under the age of 40 and especially under the age of 30 is very, very rare. So my personal opinion is that it really doesn't need to have any screenings like mammography, because even it's not appropriate at that age, or ultrasound. But I think that at this age is more important to give more attention to your personal health and to do self-examination, because we would screen 10,000, 100,000 of women, and we would cause a lot of fear, a lot of stress going to these screenings, but we would find less than 1% of all cancers. So my personal opinion is that we have to raise awareness in young women how important it is to take care of their lives, live healthy lifestyle, do self-examination, and then go to screening when they become 45 or 50, depends on the country where they have screening, and go to screening program. It doesn't help to us if we have a screening program if we don't go to the program. So I think that this is more important than to lower the age and invite all the women.
Okay, that's very good. Thank you very much, Tanja. I want to go to Dr. Roland Halston now, and we'll come back to that point about living healthy lifestyles and maybe the other things that women should be doing as well to try and mitigate against the chances of getting breast cancer. But Dr. Halston, you're very welcome. I hope you're there. I can't see you on my screen, but Dr. Halston is a member of a support group for employees with breast cancer in the European Parliament, and it's the Brussels Medical Service that offers psychological support in the workplace for women who are suffering or have suffered from breast cancer during their sick leave and or on their return to work. Hello, Dr. Halston. Can you see me and can you hear me?
Yes, both of it. Thank you very much for the invitation. But let me please first thank Tanja for sharing her story. I'm really impressed. I'm really touched by what Tanja just referred, and I'm about to rather say that what Tanja just mentioned is this bundle of measures needed, in prevention, in early detection. But maybe if I might just adjust still, that I think even in school trainings, raising awareness might even start in young women at girls' age. Yeah. So. But you asked me for a psychological support group, so we are in a complete different setting. It's for staff members of the European Parliament. We talk about a company of at least 8,000 people. We just, if you're interested in the history, we established this support group in 2015. It was on request of women touched by breast cancer, because I think this was already mentioned, those women had treatments outside in hospitals, but something like a support group is rarely offered by university hospitals or by specialized centers. And still, I talk to you from Brussels. We are spoiled. We have different, very big centers regarding cancer diseases. So the need was there after long-term absences to have an exchange. And what we established with the help of 2 psychologists and my colleague Dr. Belge is this kind of a peer group. So exchanging experience after having had the disease, after having lived with the treatment which Tanja described so impressively, how life went on, and this coming back to professional life with all the challenges related to colleagues who were organizing themselves in a different way and not really waiting for the long-term absent colleague suffering from breast cancer. So that is the story behind our approach over here, and we were even able to keep it running during the pandemic. We are very proud of that because it even worked over a distance.
Maybe increased cases of either breast cancer or cancers in general in the future, because people haven't gone maybe for checkups, or they've been afraid to go to the hospitals. We'll get to that in a moment. But can you give us an idea, Dr. Halston, of the kind of psychological issues that women who have been through the breast cancer treatment experience? What are the kind of typical problems they would suffer from when they're trying to reintegrate into the workplace?
Yeah, it concerns mental and physical problems on the long run. This constant fatigue related to what Tanja mentioned, chemotherapy or radiotherapy. It's women. We already mentioned that at sometimes very young age, having a family and not this. I think we shouldn't imagine that women can really concentrate on their disease. No, their normal life goes on. They have to take care very often for a family. So it's this constant fight of delivery, of fighting against disease, and then in addition integrating it into this coming back to work. And this is where we try to build a bridge that at least we try to welcome them with open arms. We try to make the links then with hierarchy that this fight or that this problems wouldn't touch all aspects of life.
And what's your experience from, we'll say, organizations or the workplace where women would be returning after this experience? Is there general sympathy for their situation, or is it the case, well, you're back to work, you just get on with the job and do what you can?
I think we approved, so we're talking here about the women concerned by cancer, but I think we also set this signal that we are caring about them. So I would say we put this flag that also our colleagues are much more aware about long-term diseases, long-term cancer diseases. So I think on both sides, the one suffering from disease, but also the colleagues welcoming, the colleagues being there, accessible for the welcome. There is a very good improvement.
Okay, Dr. Halston, stay with us. I want to go back to you, Eva. Let's talk about the other things that women can do, and indeed men as well, of course, who get cancers and get breast cancers, living healthy lifestyles. And the point that was made earlier too about maybe educating young boys and girls about all of these issues. What more do you think can be done apart from going for screening and making sure that, you know, women check themselves, what else can be done in terms of encouraging a more healthy lifestyle, more awareness of some of the things that can be bad for our bodies and potentially lead to cancers? What can be done to improve that?
That's a very difficult question. I think there are many things that one could do, but in the end, we can never really know. And here the professionals can correct me, what the cause of a disease could be, like breast cancer. Is it links through the family? Is it something we do? Is it related to stress? What is it? However, I'm of the opinion that, yes, one has to have a healthy lifestyle, a healthy mindset as well, and be able to, I think, most importantly, speak about one's feelings. And one has to be able to do that within his family, also within the workplace, and outside. I think it's very easy to, especially in my political arena, to just talk about politics on every single meeting you have, and also a lunch or a dinner, and discuss the latest developments in foreign policy, for example. But sometimes among friends, it would be useful if one talks about their experiences in the health arena or in the mindfulness of people, because once you know that your friends do a regular checkup, maybe you yourself will be more eager to do that checkup. I know a number of friends, both male and female, that are so worried to get to the hospital. They're like, no, until I don't feel something. I don't like going to hospitals. People are scared and worried to go to the hospital. And I think we need to address issues head on. You need to get there. Maybe there's nothing, but it's better to be reassured by the professionals after you have a check, after you had a screening, after you've been monitored, that there is really, no issue. And I think it is in the end of early, boils down to early education and to the way people were brought up. Should we do a yearly checkup? Is it a 6-month checkup? Did my mom do it? Did my dad do it? Did my family do that? Do my friends do it? Do we talk about it? Is that the norm? Because now when we talk about education, we very often say, one could check everything online. And I am one of those, people that thinks, yes, you don't need to remember everything. You could check it online. But there are some examples that you don't need to remember, but it's kind of lead by example. If children see what their parents are doing, and if they feel comfortable and know that going to the hospital is not a bad thing, it's actually, you're meeting a doctor, it's actually an important thing for your well-being. It starts with small examples, I think, in the end of the day, because nowadays I've spread so many reasons of why people could get cancer, that sometimes you could really detect the reason, and sometimes you're unsure what the reason is. Maybe if I can just add, someone close to me very recently got diagnosed with breast cancer, and it's incredible the speed since the diagnosis was given, through the time of the operation and the surgery, and now chemo is still necessary. We're speaking of a course of less than 2 months. It's really impressive how we start to tackle these issues, and I'm really proud of my friend because she's just so strong. And I think one of the reasons why, of course, it depends on personality how you tackle these things, but I think one of the reasons is the information there, the awareness there, the many good examples, and many women like Tanja coming forward and speaking about their experience. And this really gives us, the strength to tackle head-on the disease. Or if one doesn't do regular enough screenings, after even this conversation today, even though I'm one of those non-experts, but there are 2 people that have really faced the issue in various forms much closer than I have, If you hear them, I think one should really think maybe we should go and do that screening. Maybe we should do that check in a couple of weeks' time, just to bring the statistic on the right side of events.
And just getting back to the reasons why people may be reluctant to go to see the doctors or go to the hospitals, is that, from your experience of hearing those situations, is that because of COVID and the fact that they were terrified to go to a hospital over the last 18 months or so? Or is it just generally they don't like the experience of going for a checkup or going to see a doctor?
Well, the cases I would refer is that they simply don't like the experience of going to a doctor. And I think the way I was brought up and people around me, it was seen as a scary institution. I don't know if that's the experience in other countries or in other societies, but people are terrified going to the doctor. And what I have done with my kids is I've taught them that the doctor is their friend. I told them that even we go to these just regular checks, he's your friend, you're going to meet him, you're going to have a good time. And I'm very, very happy that, those doctors, pediatricians that we frequent, they just have a way to deal with kids, and it's such a nice way that we never really have an issue when visiting the pediatrician. And I remember, my experience wasn't really like that. So I think also, medical professionals have really walked along paths, at least in some countries that I'm more familiar with, in the way they treat patients and the way they come across. And I think this really, really helps in the mindset for a patient. What does it mean when you need to go to the medical professional?
Well, let me put that point to you, Tanja, because you clearly, you took the incentive, you went to your medics, and then you've been through a long process. Was that experience, did you find dealing with the medics in your country was intimidating and off-putting?
Well, actually, I really have a good experience with that, but maybe just because I'm also a veterinarian and I have a little bit of medical background, and I really feel, as Eva said, that doctors are our friends and that we should not be afraid of that. But I can see, and I see in my daily work with patients now, that women are scared and are afraid of going to doctor, but not because they are afraid of the doctor, but because they are afraid that something will be wrong with them. So probably at that time, they don't want to hear that something is wrong with them, even if they have some feelings or they found something. And we really try as an organization to encourage them to go and to see, because not all the lumps in the breasts are cancer. So even if it's not cancer, you have to know what it is. From my personal experience, the whole team that I was dealing with was very cooperative, and I was really part of the team, and we made the shared decisions. But that's not always the case, and that's something that we advocate, that all women should have the same experience like that. So to be part of the team, not to be afraid to go, take action, and then go through the treatment, as Eva said, really bravely and full of positive energy.
And how did you progress with your career? Because not only are you the president of Europa Donna, Slovenia, but as you mentioned, you're a vet, but you also did a PhD in neuroscience. How on earth did you manage to achieve so much while going through so many years of treatment?
Well, I was in the first year of my PhD when I was diagnosed. So I was a young researcher at that time, and probably that was the reason why I took my cancer from scientific part as a scientist, not just as a regular patient. I felt this emotional side really lately. 2 years after the diagnosis, everything came after me, and then I was dealing with all the open questions. But yeah, during the PhD, I was on the chemo and radiation therapy. I really had a big support in my lab. Everybody knew what was going on, and also we were joking if I will change breast for brain for breast. Even the first letter is the same. But no, I did it. I finished my PhD in brain, sex differences in the brain. And then I had to decide. At that time, I already became active in Europa Donna in Slovenia, and I couldn't be in both places. I couldn't be professional patient advocate and part-time scientist, because I don't believe that there is such a thing as a part-time scientist. And I pick Europa Donna because I'm here more with my heart and with my soul. But definitely all the knowledge that I got, even from vet school and my PhD, is now very helpful in my work, and I can collaborate more with scientists and be a patient expert in this part, what we do in our advocacy work. But later, during my work in Slovenia, I also became a member of executive board in our umbrella organization, the European Coalition. And last year, during this pandemic, I became also the president. So now I'm working in Slovenia, but also taking a part in European Coalition as a president.
Well, you sound very busy, but presumably you're incredibly conscious about leading a healthy lifestyle, I presume, and getting regular checks.
Yes, as we can see in the past few years, several studies also confirmed how important the healthy lifestyle is in prevention of all cancers, not just breast cancer. In some cases, we could prevent more than 50% of cancers just by healthy lifestyle. So this is far more efficient than almost any treatment. So why to cure if we can prevent? But unfortunately, we are human beings, and even if we are aware of this, we are still doing an unhealthy lifestyle, like smoking, drinking alcohol. Yeah, of course, but we really need to make changes. And if we make changes in our behavior, as already Eva said at the beginning, our children, our friends, our families will follow us. But we just probably need some role models. And how to change behavior is one of the hardest things that we can do in our lives. Everybody have any experience with that. How hard is you make a decision, and how hard is to stick with that decision and continue with the healthy lifestyle. But definitely in cancer, we can see that this is very, very important, more than some other things.
And that statistic you mentioned is amazing. Dr. Halston, if I can go to you, this is a big challenge, isn't it? And maybe, it's going to be part of the whole EU plan, the Beating Cancer plan, is to really show how important it is to lead healthy lifestyles. How do you get people, especially as younger people and children, to understand that, leading a healthy lifestyle in terms of cancer prevention is just so critically important, and to make sure that message gets through?
For me, very easy here to reply, because Eva and Tanja already spoke about role models. I'm really impressed, because I have children myself. I experience it every day. For me, that is one of the components of the first education, that we show children already a healthy lifestyle, that we teach them to learn even about healthy or how to cope with what Eva mentioned, how to cope with health systems, not to be scared about health systems. So it's other motivation, the different campaigns, or what was mentioned already, the consumption of alcohol or cigarette smoking. We discuss it, we talk about it every day. We offer here, for example, for this working staff in Parliament, we offer annual checkups, and we try to calculate different risk settings for different diseases, cardiovascular diseases, cancer diseases. But once again, here my full respect to Tanja, because the classical risk factors, I think for Tanja it never counted, and still she is so much working for this essential thing of raising awareness about that it exists and that there is exception existing in such malignancy, in such cancer diseases. So I come back to it. It's the role model, family-wise, education, and then to lead. Or this is one of my tasks: leading colleagues to the attitude or to the idea of prevention, so that one day, really like Eva mentioned, a doctor could be your friend. A doctor, take the gynecologist. It's really the women's doctor. We try to celebrate the urologist, like the males, like the men's doctor, that the idea of contacting a doctor is not only, if I might say, for repairing. No, it could also be in the preventive sense. Yeah, so not waiting for the disease to come up. No, to have exactly what Tanja said. Prevention is much more efficient than any kind of treatment.
Okay, I'll just go back to you very finally, Eva, because I mentioned what the European Parliament is doing in terms of its work on beating cancer, as it's been called, and the EU has the Beating Cancer Plan. What do you think are the kind of essential things that the EU needs to do, and indeed the Parliamentary Committee as well, in really getting the message out to improve screening, but also to ensure the healthy lifestyle is a big part of that as well?
I would be very short. I think maybe I would put it a little bit more idealistic, but I think the dream and the belief today is that in the foreseeable future, cancer has to be eliminated as a cause for death. And this is why I'm very proud to be sitting in the EPP group, because we try to set the agenda where we could achieve that with the combined efforts of multiple stakeholders working together with the awareness and willingness of women as active participants and with regular breast cancer screening and checks. I'm glad that it's higher on the political agenda because we would like to show that policymakers could also contribute in making sure that this dream is possible, that in the future, cancer will be eliminated as a cause for death. It's difficult, but with the work of institutions, non-governmental sector, survivors, women and men also undergoing treatment, and I think it's possible, but we need to be, making sure we raise the awareness daily. And if we could also do it through some, common efforts on an EU level, that would be fantastic. So hopefully if we are to speak in a year from now, we would see some more concreteness from the European institutions. But I think we're on a good way. It's at least a complementary way next to all those national organizations and stakeholders who've been walking that path for many years now. And I really admire them for doing that, because I gave you a little bit of the numbers back home, but those numbers are even higher in larger member states. And so those success stories are possible if we get our minds and heads into it and put it as a priority. I think our health, I always say, we cannot have a prosperous economy if we are not healthy and if we are not well educated. So this is the basis for making sure that we have an economic prosperity, because we very often, put our brains into all sorts of complicated legislation that would ensure more competitiveness, for example. Well, if our people are not healthy, if they're not happy, and if they're not well trained and skilled, we can never achieve it. So we should first tackle the real basis of this
Okay.
issue.
Okay, well, on that point, we will leave it. But Eva Maydell, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Also, thanks to you, Tanja Spanic, and for sharing your own personal experiences so powerfully. And to you too, Dr. Roland Halston. Thank you so much. That's the end of our webinar. I hope that you have been inspired by what you have heard this evening, and that wouldn't it be a wonderful thing if we could see a radical reduction in these diseases such as breast cancer. I will say goodbye to you now, and I hope to see you again in the future. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.